Death is supposed to be the one rule that nothing gets to break. You are born, you live, you die. That's the deal. Every single organism on this planet signed the same contract. But somewhere in the deep ocean, a handful of creatures apparently decided that contract was more of a suggestion. Some of them reverse aging. Some of them live in places so hostile that the water itself should be killing them. One of them eats things so much bigger than itself that it literally dies from being too greedy. And then there is one that doesn't just cheat death, it feeds on it. See, the deep ocean has always been a place where the normal rules of biology stop making sense. No sunlight, crushing pressure, near freezing temperatures, and almost no food. Most life would take one look at these conditions and say, absolutely not. But the creatures that did move in didn't just survive. They evolved strategies so extreme that they make everything else in the animal kingdom look fragile. These are 6 deep-sea monsters that looked at the rules of death and said, those don't apply to me. Starting with the most obvious cheat code in the entire ocean, the immortal jellyfish. Turritopsis. Doharney is a jellyfish about the size of your pinky nail. Fully grown, it's barely 4.5 millimeters across. You could fit dozens of them on a single coin. It has a transparent, bell-shaped body, a bright red stomach, and up to 90 tiny tentacles. It looks completely unremarkable, and yet, this little thing has done something that no other animal on Earth has ever figured out. When it gets old, or sick, or injured, or even just stressed, it doesn't die. It reverses its entire life cycle. Its bell contracts, its tentacles shrink, and it sinks to the ocean floor as a blob of tissue. That blob then regrows into a polyp, which is the juvenile form of a jellyfish, basically resetting itself back to a teenager. Then, from that polyp, genetically identical jellyfish bud off and start the whole process over again. It's not healing. It's not regenerating a lost limb. It is literally unaging itself through a process called transdifferentiation, where adult cells transform back into completely different types of cells. Every specialized cell in its body gets reprogrammed into something new. It's like if a 90-year-old human could will themselves back into an embryo and then grow up again as the exact same person. And this isn't a one-time trick. One scientist in Japan kept a colony alive that rebirthed itself 11 times in just 2 years. Theoretically, this cycle can repeat forever. There is no biological limit, no maximum lifespan. The immortal jellyfish has, at least on paper, achieved actual biological immortality. Now they can still die. They get eaten by fish, sea turtles, and other jellyfish constantly. Most of them probably never even get the chance to reverse their aging because something has already swallowed them. But the fact that they have the ability at all is insane. No other animal can do this. Scientists are studying its genome right now, because if we can figure out how a jellyfish the size of a pencil eraser cheats death, it might help us understand human aging. I don't know whether to be inspired or slightly terrified that the blueprint for immortality belongs to something with no brain. But if the immortal jellyfish broke the rules of time, the next creature broke the rules of what should be physically survivable. Meet the Pompeii worm. Alvanella pompeiana lives on the sides of hydrothermal vents, those underwater volcanic chimneys that shoot superheated water at over 700 degrees Fahrenheit out of the ocean floor. These vents are toxic, acidic, and surrounded by water hot enough to melt lead. Nothing should be living anywhere near them, and yet the Pompeii worm has built its home directly on the chimney wall, literally inches from the source. Its tail end rests in water that can spike to 176 degrees Fahrenheit, while its feathery head pokes out into water that is around 72 degrees. That means this worm, which is only about 5 inches long, is experiencing a temperature difference of over 100 degrees across its own body. That is the steepest temperature gradient experienced by any animal on the planet. Textbook biology says an animal can either love heat or love cold, but not both. The Pompeii worm apparently did not read the textbook. So how does it survive this? Part of the answer is on its back. The Pompeii worm is covered in a thick, fleece-like layer of bacteria. These bacteria feed on mucus the worm secretes, and in return insulate the worm from the extreme heat and help break down toxic minerals from the vent fluid. The worm feeds the bacteria, and the bacteria keep the worm from getting cooked alive. Scientists have also found that its collagen is the most heat-resistant ever documented, and its DNA has a higher proportion of triple-bonded guanine-cytosine pairs that stay stable at much higher temperatures than normal DNA. This worm has been engineered from the molecular level up to survive in what is essentially an underwater volcano, and it is named after Pompeii for a reason. Just like the Roman city that thrived in the shadow of Vesuvius, these worms have built an entire civilization next to something that could destroy them at any moment. Vent sites do not last forever. The chemistry shifts, the flow stops, and the whole community has to find a new vent. But somehow, Pompeii worms have been playing this game of volcanic musical chairs for millions of years. Now, surviving extreme heat is one thing. But what about surviving where there is almost no oxygen at all? Enter the vampire squid, Vampiroothis infernalis. That's Latin for vampire squid from hell, and it is one of the most metal scientific names ever given to anything. But despite the terrifying name, the vampire squid is not a predator. It is not even really a squid. It is the only surviving member of its entire order, a living fossil occupying a branch of the evolutionary tree that connects squids and octopuses. It lives between 2,000 and 3,000 feet deep, in a region called the oxygen minimum zone. This is a layer of water where oxygen drops so low that almost nothing can breathe. We are talking oxygen levels as low as 3%. Most complex animals need at least 10 to 20% to function. At 3%, your cells would start dying. Your brain would shut down. You would be dead in minutes. The vampire squid lives its entire life there. To pull this off, it has evolved the lowest metabolic rate of any cephalopod ever measured. Its blood uses hemocyanin, a copper-based molecule that binds oxygen far more efficiently than what other squids have. And its gills have an enormous surface area to squeeze every possible molecule of oxygen out of the water. It does not chase prey because chasing burns energy, and energy requires oxygen it does not have. Instead, it drifts through the dark, collecting marine snow, the falling particles of dead organisms from above, using long, sticky filaments that extend from between its arms. It eats the dead. It feeds on the waste and remains of everything that lived and died above it. And because almost nothing else can survive in the oxygen minimum zone, the vampire squid has very few predators. It traded power for endurance, turned the most inhospitable layer of the ocean into a private kingdom, and has been doing this for at least 30 million years, possibly much longer. If something threatens it, it does not run. It cannot run. Instead, it turns itself inside out, wrapping its webbed arms over its body to expose rows of fleshy spines. If that does not work, it ejects a cloud of bioluminescent mucus, thousands of glowing blue orbs that hang in the water for up to 10 minutes, dazzling whatever was chasing it while the squid disappears into the blackness. A creature with the lowest metabolism on record, defending itself with a light show made of glowing snot. Evolution is truly unhinged sometimes. But if the vampire squid mastered the art of surviving where nothing should live, the black swallower mastered the art of eating things that should be physically impossible to eat. The black swallower is a small, scaleless, brownish-black fish, averaging about 10 inches long. It lives between 3,000 and 10,000 feet deep, where food is so scarce that you might not encounter another meal for weeks. So when the black swallower does find something to eat, it does not hold back. It swallows its prey whole, alive, even if that prey is over twice its length and 10 times its weight. A fish that is 10 inches long can eat something that is 3 feet long and 10 times heavier than itself. The way it does this is thought to involve grabbing its prey by the tail and then slowly walking its jaws over the body, like a boa constrictor in reverse, until the entire fish is coiled inside its stomach. Its jaw swings down far wider than its own head, and its stomach is basically an elastic balloon that stretches to absurd proportions. After swallowing, the stomach hangs below its body like a transparent grocery bag, and you can literally see the outline of whatever it just ate through the stretched skin. Here is the twisted part, though. Sometimes the black swallower gets too ambitious. It swallows something so massive that it cannot digest it fast enough. The prey starts to decompose inside the stomach before the swallower can break it down. Decomposition produces gas, which inflates the stomach like a balloon and forces the swallower up to the surface, where the pressure change kills it. In 2007, a fisherman off the Cayman Islands found a 7.5-inch black swallower floating at the surface with a 34-inch snake mackerel crammed inside it, a fish nearly 5 times its length. It literally ate itself to death. It broke the rules of what should fit inside a stomach, and the punishment was being dragged to the surface by its own greed. But if the black swallower lost the war against death by eating too much, the Greenland shark won that war by simply refusing to age. Greenland sharks are the longest-lived vertebrates on Earth. Not the longest-lived fish, not the longest-lived shark. The longest-lived animal with a backbone, period. Scientists used radiocarbon dating on the proteins in their eye lenses and found that some individuals are over 400 years old. 400 years. That means there are Greenland sharks alive right now that were born before the Pilgrims landed at Plymouth Rock, before Shakespeare wrote his last play, before the telescope was invented. These sharks were swimming around in the deep Arctic waters while entire human empires rose and fell. They grow at roughly 1 centimeter per year and do not even reach sexual maturity until they are about 150 years old. Think about that. These sharks spend a century and a half just growing up. By the time a Greenland shark is ready to reproduce, it is already older than any human has ever lived. They cruise through near freezing water at about 0.76 miles per hour, making them one of the slowest sharks on the planet. Their flesh is toxic, loaded with trimethylamine oxide that acts like antifreeze in their blood. Almost nothing eats them. And the creepiest part? Almost all adult Greenland sharks are blind. A parasitic copepod latches onto their corneas, eating the eye tissue and leaving behind a dangling, worm-like appendage. The sharks do not seem to care. They do not need to see. They hunt by smell and by sensing vibrations in the pitch-black Arctic depths. A 400-year-old, blind, toxic, nearly frozen shark drifting through total darkness. If that is not the definition of breaking the rules of death through sheer stubbornness, I do not know what is. And finally, the most disturbing entry on this list. Because while everything else on this list cheated death in some way, this creature does not just cheat it, it eats death. Osidax, the bone-eating worm, also known as the zombie worm. They were discovered in 2002 on the skeleton of a dead gray whale on the ocean floor at nearly 10,000 feet. When a whale dies and sinks to the bottom of the ocean, it becomes what scientists call a whale fall, an oasis of nutrients in an otherwise barren desert of mud. Other scavengers strip the flesh, but the bones are different. Whale bones are packed with lipids, fats, and oils locked inside the dense structure. And Osedax figured out how to get to them. These worms have no mouth, no stomach, and no gut. Instead, they bore directly into the bone using a root-like structure that secretes acid, dissolving the hard tissue so bacteria living inside the worm can break down the fats. The worm then absorbs the nutrients from its own bacterial symbionts. It is eating bone without a mouth. It is digesting without a stomach. The males, by the way, are microscopic. Dozens of them live inside the tube of a single female, never developing beyond a larval stage. They exist solely to provide sperm. It is basically the anglerfish arrangement, except even more extreme, because these males never even grow up. They are permanent larvae, suspended in reproductive limbo inside the body of a worm that dissolves bones for a living. Since their discovery, scientists have found that Osedax do not just eat whale bones. They will consume the bones of any vertebrate that sinks to the deep ocean floor. They are specialists in death. They wait in the deep, and when something massive finally dies and falls to them, they colonize it and feed on it for decades. A single whale fall can sustain a community of Osedax and dozens of other species for 50 to 100 years. So, there you have it. A jellyfish that reverses time. A worm that lives on volcanoes. A squid that breathes where nothing should breathe. A fish that eats things 5 times its size and dies from the ambition. A shark that has been alive since before your country existed. And a worm that feeds on the bones of the dead. 6 creatures that looked at the fundamental rules of biology and broke every single one of them. And here is the thing that keeps me up at night. We have explored less than 5% of the deep ocean. These 6 are just the ones we have found. If a jellyfish can achieve immortality and a worm can survive on a volcano, what else is down there that we have not discovered yet? What other rules are being broken right now, thousands of feet below the surface, where no human has ever looked? If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like and subscribe for more videos just like this. If you want to keep going, check out the video on screen. Thanks for watching.